Hey there and welcome to the ADK Rock and Metal channel. I am Dave Does and today I am talking about an album review. We don't do them very often, but when we do, we like to give them to relevant people. The reason we're doing this one is they actually sent the CD and I like that. We get a lot of requests to do album reviews. And it's always done by like this called the Hallix system, where they send you the press pack and the MP3s to download and listen to, and that's all fine, but I like to see a final product. So big props to the band for selling, or for the PR agency and the band for sending these out. So this band is called Helon. I initially thought it was called Helion, but obviously they've got these what are they called, Avasans or something like that. They're called Helon, and the album's called Shaman. And now, if anyone doesn't know who this band is, they are a Ukrainian thrash death metal band, been around since 2005. Having listened to this album, I didn't hear a lot of thrash in there. I heard a lot of death, and I'll talk about the sort of influences I heard as I went through it. You can buy this album for €15 over on Bandcamp. They also have a digital version for $9.99. However, my only thing around that is you also can get it on the streaming platform. So I would say that the digital download at $9.99 seems a little bit high. My general kind of consensus is, if depending on how many tracks are on the album, I usually say about 50 pence per track. There are 8 tracks on here, so around €4 is what I would have thought, but considering it's on the streaming, MP3 streaming, you probably should lower that. But I think for me, €15 for the physical CD is a good deal. I'm going to talk, before I talk about the musical side of it, I think the physical CD is really cool. It's in a book format in a wraparound, so you've got this really cool kind of wraparound book crease here, which is very, very cool. Inside we've got this really nice glossy booklet. Each page has got a section for each song, where you've got lyrics on one side and you've got a bit of introduction about the song. These great little images, etc. in here, and of course when we get to the back page, we've got the details about the band. Not too many like big thank yous and stuff like that. CD is a lovely black CD, and I think you can just about with the light get, there's like a design on it. I thought that was very cool. Yeah, it's a good packaging, well worth it, and I think this is more important nowadays. I think physical merch, buy CDs from bands, this really helps bands out. Let's talk about the album now. I think it's important to understand where I come from this particular type of genre. So I don't listen to death metal. That's not to say I haven't listened to death metal, and I do have a few albums like Obituary's World Demise. I think it's a phenomenal album, but it's not one of my kind of go-tos as far as genres. So I think it's interesting for me coming to it from an outsider point of view. There are elements in this album that really kind of connected well with me. And I'm not going to go, I see a lot of people, especially in the written reviews of albums, what they tend to do is they go, the thundering drums galloped along like horses across the plain and take you onto this journey. I'm not going to do any of that. The album's out there now, so you can kind of literally make your own mind up about it. But there are 8 tracks on this album. It kicks off with the first one, which is what Steep's Dream about. I love the idea that it starts off the album with this windswept intro. It goes into a really dark, powerful, and there's a couple of things that come out on this particular song which are continuations throughout the rest of the track in stylization. So although you've still got the standardized brutal death metal elements in there, they almost do that throat singing, which I've not come across in a sort of more mainstream. I've obviously seen it with bands like The Who from Mongolia. I was well aware of it from that sort of area, but I hadn't really heard throat singing being done in sort of more traditional death metal genre, and it works really well. They also use what I believe must be a sitar, not just on the first track, they use it throughout the album, and I think that again works really, really well. There is a lot of the traditional kind of double kick sections, and works really well again with double kick, with lots of nice little triplets going in there, and you've got some really big weighty guitars over there, vocals really guttural, really roaring. Now, because it's CD, I listen to this in my car because that's the only place I have a CD player nowadays. And the first time I listened to this album, we literally, me and the wife would drive in somewhere. We had like an hour to drive somewhere, and I put the album on. I was like, let me listen to this album while we drive. this will give me a kind of first impression. And there were some good headbang moments, and there was kind of going through it. But what we realised was we were on track 3 and hadn't realised we'd got to track 3. There is no real kind of couple of seconds separation between the track. Literally, one track finishes on the CD and it goes straight in. There's no pause really. So what they tend to do in a lot of these songs is almost the bulk of the songs on this album start with a double kick, and the bulk of the songs on this album finish with a double kick section. So what you end up finding is that songs seem to blend into each other. Now, it'd be easy to say that there isn't a lot of variety on this album, but actually there's a huge amount of variety on this album, but the variety is on every song. So what you get is, in every song, you have some amazing groove metal elements, you have some great brutal death metal speed, there's a little bits of extreme in there, there's elements of prog metal in some of what they do there. Each song on its own is really interesting. When you listen to the album from start to finish, from track 1 to the end, you kind of lose the impact of each track because there's so much similarity between the tracks, even though they can stand out on their own. So the way I think this album should be best to listen to is not from start to finish. And I usually say to our people, listen to an album from start to finish, see how it sounds, take it all in. But this album feels like it wasn't written that way. If it was, there needed to be some more separation in there, because I mean, there is, like, this last song on the album is called Shaman, and that's almost death doom. This is a much slower album, or slower song on the album. Now I'm not a fan of double kick. I'm not a fan of just blast beat and double kick. I think it loses any. It should be used at points just to highlight certain passages, but I'm not like constantly over it. So that always puts me off on an album. However, I think it's used well in this album, but again, the over-reliance of using it at the start of every song kind of did make the songs feel lost as an album, as I've said. But I think I then went back after this. I think on the third or fourth listen, I decided to pick them in random order and listen to one song, go away for 10 minutes, come back, listen to the next song on the album. And that was a much better way of appreciating the songs on this album. I think listening to it in a shuffle, mixing it with other music and coming back allows those songs to hit you, impact you really, really strongly. I mean, there is stuff in here. I mean, there is stuff on... even on the very first song, there are elements of the chorus on What Steep Streams About. Reminded me almost like of a Roots era Sepultura chorus. You can hear the influences of the Sepultura era in there. You've got the classic death metal in there. You've got hints of doom in there. There's straight up the weight of bands like I love, like Samael, for instance. That you can feel the weight of that sort of band in there as well. So there are some really strong influences coming in there from the band here, but they seem to have blended them really well together into one cohesive album. So the only thing I could really tell you after listening to it for the first time all the way through was that there was loads of interesting things going on, but I didn't really know exactly how to break it down. It needed 2, 3, 4 listens to really appreciate where this band's going. I think overall, really impressive album. We don't really do scores on here. Some people like scores, some people don't. Would I recommend buying this? Yes, I definitely would, even from just the CD point of view. It's a great CD presentation, so I think you should buy it just for the fact it's a great looking CD. Musically, I think what they should do is reduce the Digi MP3 price down. I think it's too expensive. You're not going to get really many people buying it at $9.99 in my opinion. They'll just stream it anyway, but if you, from a boosting, it makes sense to do it that way. But yeah, I would recommend buying it, and if I was to give it a score out of 10, I would give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's a very, very good album, and well worth spending your money on. That's it from me today. If you enjoyed the video, please do like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you on the video sometime very soon. Take care.